Whether you're building a groundbreaking startup, trying to land a new client, or even just tackling a complex problem at work, there's always a secret sauce to making your ideas stick. It's about ensuring they resonate, getting people on board, and ultimately seeing them come to life in the world.
Yeah, absolutely. Getting that buy-in.
Exactly. And today, we're pulling back the curtain on that very process,
Yeah.
specifically through the lens of academic research. Because honestly, the principles are incredibly similar.
They really are. The core challenges of communication and persuasion cut across fields.
So in this deep dive, we're taking a fascinating journey through a series of From the Editor's articles. These were published in the Academy of Management Journal.
Right, AMJ. It's a top-tier journal in the management field.
Yeah, definitely not some obscure publication. It's one of the most prestigious outlets for management research in the world. And these articles we're looking at, they aren't your typical dry academic papers.
No, not at all. They're more like insider guides.
Right. Packed with direct advice from the very people who decide what gets published, the senior editors themselves.
Exactly. People who've seen thousands of submissions.
Think of them as bumper-to-bumper coverage on how to craft a truly impactful scholarly argument, from choosing your initial topic right through to writing that final, powerful discussion section.
And our mission here is really to distill these expert insights into actionable knowledge for you, the listener, regardless of your background. You'll gain a deeper understanding of what makes any argument, any proposal, not just good, but exceptional.
Right. Those little things that make a big difference.
Precisely. We'll explore the often unspoken rules of persuasion, the common pitfalls that undermine even brilliant ideas.
Oh, yeah, we all hit those sometime.
We do. And the strategies that turn a raw concept into a published contribution or, a successful venture. So if you've ever wondered how to make your own ideas resonate, how to structure a compelling argument, or simply how to communicate complex information effectively to any audience, this deep dive is definitely for you.
Yeah.
We'll look at the fundamental principles that apply far beyond academic writing itself.
Because whether you're a student preparing a thesis, maybe a professional prepping for a big meeting, or just someone who loves getting to the heart of how things work and wants to communicate better,
Right.
understanding how top-tier research is built, refined, and presented gives you a massive shortcut to being well-informed and persuasive.
It really does. It's like seeing the blueprint.
Yeah. It's about learning to communicate with clarity, impact, and compelling logic.
Oh.
Okay, let's unpack this. So, before you even write a single word, the most crucial decision you make is your topic.
Absolutely fundamental.
The editors emphasize that the seeds for many rejections are planted at the inception of a project. So if you're not in academia, how do you pick a topic or maybe a project idea or a problem to solve that creates momentum and excitement right out of the gate?
Well, what's truly fascinating here is that the foundation of any successful endeavor, be it a research paper or a business initiative, it really starts with identifying a topic that has inherent momentum.
Momentum.
Yeah. Colquitt and George, in their June 2011 editorial, they lay out 5 criteria for this.
5. Okay, what are they?
They are significance, novelty, curiosity, scope, and actionability.
Significance, novelty, curiosity, scope, actionability.
Exactly. And these aren't just academic buzzwords, they're incredibly powerful lenses through which to view any impactful problem.
Right. So not just for papers.
No, whether it's for a journal submission, a critical business proposal, or even choosing a passion project, they help you determine if your idea has the raw potential to make a splash.
Okay, let's break those down. First one, significance. You mentioned grand challenges. That sounds, well, grand. What does that mean for an academic paper and maybe more importantly for us in the real world?
Right. Well, in academia, it's about tackling large, unresolved problems. Now, these aren't necessarily, global challenges like eradicating poverty, though sometimes they might be. But they are significant, persistent problems within a particular field or an existing body of knowledge.
Okay, so big problems within a specific area.
Exactly. And the key is that it requires a bold and unconventional way of thinking, a way that leaps beyond existing explanations.
Beyond. I like that.
Yeah. For instance, there's a paper by Furley and colleagues from 2005 cited for confronting the grand challenge of why evidence-based innovations sometimes fail to spread in healthcare.
Oh, interesting. That's a big problem.
Huge problem. And they move beyond simplistic linear models to explain this idea of non-spread, highlighting how even factors that should help diffusion could actually hinder it.
Wow. Okay. So, for the listener, what's the takeaway?
It means Don't just solve a small, obvious problem. Look for the biggest, most stubborn puzzle in your field, the one everyone complains about, but no one has genuinely tackled with a fresh perspective.
Find the real headache.
Precisely. That's where you create real momentum and impact, whether you're developing a new product, designing a new policy, or trying to understand a market shift. It's about moving your specific world forward with both rigor and relevance.
Okay, rigor and relevance. Got it.
Yeah.
So beyond being significant, a topic needs to be novel. How do you know if you're truly changing the conversation rather than just, adding to the noise?
That's a really important question. Does your study or your project merely add momentum, or does it cause heads to turn?
Cause heads to turn. Okay.
Novelty often comes from what's called knowledge recombination.
Knowledge recombination. What's that?
It means building bridges between two previously separate literatures or disciplines or even business strategies. It's about finding new, unexpected connections, synthesizing things.
Ah, okay. Like combining two different ideas.
Exactly. The editors identify three common pitfalls that can stifle novelty, though.
Pitfalls. Like what?
Well, first, there's the familiarity trap, where a topic is just too well trodden. It leads to a perceived marginal extension.
Right? Feels like been there, done that.
Precisely. Second, the maturity trap concerns topics so thoroughly explored that new contributions just seem redundant.
Nothing new to say.
And third, the nearness trap refers to topics too adjacent to existing approaches, failing to offer a truly radical departure.
So too safe, basically.
Kind of. So the core insight here, whether you're writing a paper or developing a new product, is knowledge recombination.
Yeah.
Deliberately smashing together two seemingly unrelated ideas, fields, or problems to create something truly new.
Like peanut butter and chocolate.
Huh. Maybe something like bringing mobile tech and healthcare together for telemedicine. That's recombination causing heads to turn.
Gotcha. Okay. Third criterion. Curiosity. I love the idea of a paper sparking curiosity. How do authors achieve that in their topic choice? And how can we apply that to, say, a business presentation?
Yeah, it's about creating that Shazam moment of insight,
Yeah.
that spark of inspired recognition.
Shazam.
There's this classic idea from Davis back in 1971, his Index of the Interesting. It suggests topics are curious when their propositions counter a reader's taken-for-granted assumptions.
So surprising people. Challenging what they think they know.
Exactly. If you can show a seemingly good phenomenon to actually be bad, or vice versa, that immediately challenges expectations and sparks curiosity.
Okay, so for a business presentation, maybe lead with a counterintuitive finding about the market.
Precisely. Or a surprising insight into customer behavior. Another powerful way to think about it is using mystery as a metaphor.
Mystery.
Yeah. Interesting research topics or compelling business problems often flow from breakdowns, surprising findings in existing data or literature that current explanations just can't resolve.
Like a puzzle.
Exactly. It's less about simply gap spotting and more about solving a genuine puzzle. There's a great example from Van Cleef and colleagues in 2009. They examined if team performance was better facilitated by leaders displaying happiness or anger.
Oh, interesting. Which one was it?
See, if you can't guess the ending, if there's genuine suspense, you're definitely on the right track for a curious topic or a captivating presentation.
Okay, makes sense. Keep them guessing. So we have significant, novel, curious. What about scope? You said a topic can be undermined if the scope is too small. What does adequate scope look like?
Right.
And what's the real-world parallel?
Right. Scope is about adequately sampling the landscape of your topic.
The landscape.
Yeah, including all relevant constructs, mechanisms, perspectives that truly define the phenomenon you're studying. It's about being ambitious.
Ambitious, okay.
The editors caution against trying to get multiple small papers from one dataset. They urge authors to aim for one great one instead.
So don't slice it too thin just to get more publications.
Exactly. And in the business world, this means resisting the urge to break a big, impactful project into many smaller, less significant ones just to hit minor milestones.
Right, focus on the big win.
Aim for that one great initiative that truly moves the needle. There's a strong example from Seibert, Kramer, and Leiden back in 2001 on social capital and career success. Instead of focusing on just one theoretical perspective on social capital, they examined all three prominent ones. And critically, they operationalized mediators for each.
So they covered all the angles.
Yeah, this comprehensive approach allowed them to thoroughly explore the domain. Now, you can certainly overdo it and include too much.
Right. Scope creep.
Exactly. But the initial aim should always be comprehensiveness to ensure the study or project is truly impactful, tackling the problem from all necessary angles.
Okay. And the last one, actionability. This connects back to the so what question, right?
Right.
How does a topic offer insights for practice?
Precisely. Actionability means your research provides insights useful to practitioners, especially concerning variables they can actually control or influence.
Things people can actually do something about.
Right. It's about explaining variability in real-world practices that our existing knowledge can't fully explain. For instance, how do low-cost innovations like a hypothetical $20 artificial knee emerge when the innovation literature often focuses on capital-intensive R&D?
Yeah. How does that happen?
Well, McGann in 2007 identified 5 major ways management studies can be actionable. Things like offering counterintuitive insights or highlighting the effect of new important practices.
Okay.
Ultimately, actionable research isn't just theory for theory's sake. It closes the loop by contributing to real-world understanding and improvement.
So the takeaway for us.
Your insights shouldn't just be interesting. They should empower someone to do something different, to improve a process, or to make a better decision. It reinforces that any deep dive into a problem should ideally have a tangible impact beyond mere discussion.
Makes sense. Actionable insights. Great foundation. Okay, so you picked your brilliant topic using those 5 criteria. Now, how do you get someone to care enough to read your entire paper or, listen to your whole pitch or greenlight your project?
Yeah, that's the next hurdle.
It all comes down to the introduction, right? Or as one of our sources puts it, setting the hook.
Absolutely. The introduction, even though it's often the shortest section of an article, is absolutely critical.
Why so critical?
Because it fundamentally determines whether readers, especially reviewers, actually continue. Grant and Pollock, writing back in October 2011, they highlighted that if reviewers are intrigued by your research question, if they understand its importance and see how it advances understanding, they're far more likely to look for reasons to recommend revision, give you the benefit of the doubt.
Okay. They're rooting for you.
Kind of.
Yeah.
Conversely, if they're not excited after the introduction, they will be more inclined to look for reasons to reject, find the flaws.
Ouch. High stakes.
Very. It truly sets the interpretive frame for the entire manuscript, shaping how the rest of the paper will be received. For any communication, really, the opening is your make-or-break moment.
Okay. So what are the essential questions an introduction or any compelling opening absolutely must address?
The editors identify 3 core sets of questions that an effective introduction has to answer.
3 questions. Got it.
First, who cares?
Who cares?
Blunt.
Right. It means, what is the topic or research question, and why is it interesting and important both in theory and in practice? You need to hook the reader immediately. Establish relevance.
Okay, hook 'em fast. What's second?
Second, what do we know, what don't we know, and so what?
Okay, the context and the gap.
Exactly. Here you establish the theoretical gap, the controversy, or the puzzle that your study addresses. You acknowledge existing knowledge, but then highlight its limitations or unanswered questions, explaining why this puzzle needs to be addressed now.
The urgency.
Okay, and third.
And third, what will we learn?
What will we learn?
This is often overlooked, but it's crucial for clearly stating your contribution. How does your study fundamentally change, challenge, or advance scholarly understanding? It provides a preview of your theoretical contribution, basically a roadmap for the reader.
Okay, so who cares? What's the gap and why now? Or what are you adding?
That's the core framework.
Are there common strategies to hook the reader effectively? What makes an opening truly captivating?
Absolutely. The editors identified 2 archetypal hooks that really stand out.
2 main types, okay.
One is using a provocative quotation or a vivid vignette.
Like a little story or a powerful quote.
Exactly. For example, in a paper on competitive action, Ferrier and colleagues back in '99 hooked readers by using actual media headlines about market share erosion to set the stage. Very concrete.
Grabs your attention.
Definitely. Some authors even take this further by opening with a captivating story, like Plowman and colleagues did in their 2007 study on radical change, which started by describing changes at Mission Church.
Makes it real. What's the other type?
The other archetype is highlighting trends.
Trends, like market trends.
Could be. Either on Main Street, meaning real-world workplace changes. Ellsback and Kramer, for instance, in 2003, opened their work on creativity judgments in Hollywood by lamenting the lack of insight into how experts judge creative potential despite a whole cottage industry of books on creativity.
Okay, Pointing out a real-world puzzle.
Right. Or you can highlight trends in the ivory tower. So academic literature trends, identifying limitations or contradictions, as Barkema and Vermeulen did in 1998 with foreign direct investment research.
So showing a gap in the research itself.
Exactly. These strategies immediately capture attention and establish the study's relevance, whatever the field.
Okay. Now, you mentioned establishing the gap. The term used was problematizing the literature.
Yeah.
That sounds almost confrontational. Does it ever backfire, or are there constructive ways to do it?
That's a crucial distinction, yeah. It's really about convincing readers that existing knowledge needs further development, that there's a significant problem with the current understanding that your work is going to solve.
Okay, not just attacking, but showing a need.
Right. Locke and Goldenbiddle in '97 identified 3 approaches. First is incompleteness, where you just show a gap. It's common, but it can sometimes make your contribution seem a bit incremental if you're not careful.
Just filling a small hole.
Kind of. The second is incommensurability, which involves directly attacking prior research as inaccurate.
Ooh, risky.
It can certainly pique interest, but yeah, it often provokes backlash from reviewers who might be defensive of the work you're attacking. Definitely a risky strategy for a paper, and probably a terrible idea for a business pitch.
Huh. Probably not. What's the third way?
The third, and often considered the best middle ground, is inadequacy.
Inadequacy. Okay.
Here, you argue that prior work failed to incorporate important perspectives or overlooked crucial aspects, thus warranting a fresh look without completely dismissing previous scholarship.
Very constructive.
Exactly. Greenwood and Sedeby in 2006 provide an excellent example of problematizing based on theoretical importance, showing how to highlight limitations constructively to open the door for new insights. So yes, it can backfire if done poorly, but done well, it frames your work as a vital next step.
Okay, so frame it as building, not just tearing down. How do you effectively set expectations for the paper's contribution, or for any big project you're introducing?
Hollenbeck in 2008 noted 2 powerful ways to frame your contribution and set those expectations: consensus shifting and consensus creation.
Consensus shifting and consensus create.
Consensus shifting is when you identify widely held assumptions in the literature or maybe in your industry, and then you challenge them, describing the implications.
Like turning conventional wisdom on its head.
Exactly. Plowman et al., for example, challenged linear models of change, forcing a shift in how radical change is perceived.
Okay. And consensus creation.
That's when you identify a lack of consensus or maybe conflict in the literature or within your organization, and then you either clarify the lines of debate or actually resolve the conflict.
Bringing clarity to confusion.
Right. Scherer and Lee in 2002 exemplified this by clarifying ambiguities in institutional and resource dependence perspectives. It's about giving readers a clear, upfront sense of how your work will change, challenge, or advance the conversation right from the start.
Managing expectations.
Yeah, ensuring they know what significant insight to expect. And managing those expectations is key for a successful outcome, really.
Given how important introductions are, I'm guessing they take a lot of effort. What does the process actually look like for these top authors? Is it like one draft and done?
Definitely not. They absolutely take a ton of effort. The research shows award-winning authors spend an average of 24%, almost a quarter, of their total writing time just on the introduction.
Wow, 24%, but it's short.
Exactly. Despite it typically being less than 10% of the paper's length. And here's the kicker. They rewrite it, on average, 10 times.
10 times. Seriously.
Seriously, it's a highly iterative process. Some authors use a method called ruthless rewriting.
Ruthless rewriting. Sounds intense.
It is. Co-authors heavily revise each other's prose without mercy. There's an anecdote about author 1 writing, author 2 rewriting that, and so on. Back and forth until they agree. Requires immense trust, obviously.
Wow. Okay. What other approaches?
Others engage in iterative enactment, continuously refining their ideas until the research question and contribution truly crystallize. This is especially common in qualitative work where theory emerges from the data.
More organic.
Yeah. And some follow a map, systematically addressing those core questions. Who cares? What do we know? What will we learn in a more linear fashion?
Okay.
But regardless of the approach, it's clear that getting the introduction right is a monumental, time-consuming task, whether it's for a paper or a key business document.
So what are the traps authors fall into with introductions? And how can we avoid those in our own communications? Seems easy to mess up.
It is. Reviewers frequently cite three major mistakes. First, failing to motivate and problematize is extremely common.
Assuming people already care.
Exactly. Authors often assume the topic's importance is obvious, or they just engage in gap filling without explaining the so what, why that gap is significant or interesting to address. They might just state, this has never been done before, without clearly articulating the broader impact.
Okay, so for us, don't just state a problem. Explain why it matters right now.
Precisely. Second, there's lack of focus.
Rambling.
Yeah. Introductions can be too long, rambling, or use too many theoretical frameworks in positioning the paper. Reviewers want clarity and conciseness. Your audience does too.
Get to the point.
Right. Finally, overpromising is a pitfall.
Claiming too much.
Yeah, where authors set unrealistic expectations for their paper's contributions, creating a mismatch between the grand claims in the introduction and what the rest of the paper actually delivers.
Underdeliver and disappoint.
Exactly. It's about being compelling without being implausible or ridiculously self-serving. The goal is to set the hook effectively but also realistically.
Okay, hook set. Now we dive into the why, the theoretical underpinnings. What's the core purpose of this section, really? Is it just summarizing what others have said, a literature review?
No, it's much more than that. The theory section is critical for an AMJ submission, and honestly, for any persuasive argument. Sparrow and Mayer, in their December 2011 editorial, they stress that its primary purpose is to ground hypotheses.
Ground hypotheses, okay.
So this isn't just a literature review where you summarize what others have said. Instead, it's about developing a clear, logical argument for your claims.
Building your case.
Exactly. Positioning your hypotheses within existing research and creating coherence among your proposed variables. It's where you build the intellectual scaffolding and persuade readers of the plausibility and significance of your claims.
Okay.
Making it clear how your ideas fit into and advance the broader scholarly conversation or maybe your company's strategy.
So it's a conversation with prior research, not just a list of citations or a historical timeline. How do you balance that dialogue with bringing something new to the table?
Precisely. You need to balance engaging with previous research while developing your own novel insights. A really common pitfall is argument by citation.
Argument by citation.
Yeah, where sentences just begin with Smith, 2002, found, without the author building their own compelling logical argument.
Letting the citations do the work.
Right. Your citation should illustrate and support your argument, not replace it. The theory section should clearly lead up to your specific prediction, making it feel inevitable, not a surprise to the reader.
Yeah.
Conversely, you can't just ignore highly relevant papers. The key is to engage the underlying theoretical narrative of past research, not just its empirical results. You need to explain what has been done and why your paper offers a logical and important contribution that goes beyond prior work.
So understand the story the field is telling.
Yeah, and show how you're adding the next chapter. One effective technique suggested is to try drafting your entire theory and hypothesis section without a single citation first.
Really? No citations.
Just as an exercise. It forces you to ensure your logic is clear, consistent, and persuasive on its own. Only then do you go back and integrate the prior work, giving credit and explaining how your new work complements or challenges it.
Interesting technique. Ensures your voice is central.
Exactly. Your unique argument remains central.
So how do you make your hypotheses persuasive? How do you really substantiate them so they're not just guesses?
Good question. You're trying to convince skeptical readers that your claim that Y is systematically related to X is plausible.
Right. Why should they believe you?
Well, you can link your hypothesis to central tenets of established theory, appealing to well-accepted models, maybe like Tyler and Blader's group engagement model.
Okay. Grounding it in existing theory.
But simply referencing isn't enough. You need to provide verbal explication, explaining why that theory supports your prediction without the reader having to go read the original source.
Tell it out.
Right. Another way is to offer empirical evidence from similar circumstances, but this must always be accompanied by a logical rationale. Why does that past evidence apply here?
Okay.
A third and very powerful approach is to describe the role of intervening states and/or processes, the how the relationship occurs, the mechanism.
Explaining the connection.
Exactly. Siebert, Kramer, and Liddon in 2001 offer a great example. They carefully explained how social capital leads to career benefits through specific mediators, like access to information and resources.
Showing the pathway.
Yeah. It's also crucial to identify boundary conditions if your hypotheses only apply to specific contexts, making it clearer where your claims hold true.
Defining the limits.
Right. This comprehensive approach builds strong, testable arguments. Even in a business proposal, you'd be substantiating your proposed solution in a similar way.
What if your research draws on multiple theories? Or if you're trying to combine different frameworks in a business context? Is that always a good idea, or does it just complicate things?
It can be incredibly effective, actually, but it definitely increases the challenge of maintaining explanatory coherence.
Coherence. Keeping it all tied together.
Right. The sources discuss several sophisticated approaches for this. You can pit theories against each other with competing hypotheses.
Like a theoretical showdown.
Kind of. For example, testing whether a focus on efficiency or a focus on innovation is better in a given market. But this requires care, as both might be plausible, right?
Okay.
A more nuanced and often better approach is to explain when and why one theory takes precedence, testing the specific conditions under which each is most applicable.
Context matters.
Absolutely. You can also combine theories additively, linking different independent variables to dependent ones, but you need a strong conceptual framework that articulates how these different theoretical perspectives come together and why they are both necessary.
Okay. And the last way.
Finally, you can integrate theories, showing how their assumptions are complementary and actually require each other for full realization. This can offer new, deeper insights. Silverman in 1999 integrated transaction cost economics and the resource-based view, for instance.
Okay, so different ways to bring theories together.
The key is always to clearly explain why addressing your research question requires these specific theories and how they will be joined to create a unique contribution. You're building a coherent intellectual structure, not just a pile of ideas.
I could see how this could get messy, though. How do you maintain that coherence when you're dealing with complex theoretical models, or even just a complex problem with many moving parts?
Yeah, it's a real challenge. It raises an important question. Why did you choose this specific set of explanatory variables and not others?
Right. Justify your choices.
Exactly. Without a strong discussion of coherence, reviewers will certainly wonder what holds your theoretical narrative together. You need to explain how these variables fit together to create a strong and unified theoretical contribution.
The big picture.
Yeah, it's about having a clear, overarching research question that drives all the hypotheses, and then explaining how the explanatory variables collectively come together to address that question. This logic holds even if you don't use a literal figure with boxes and arrows.
So the logic needs to be clear.
Right. The persuasive power of your argument is best served by combining all three approaches we discussed. Building on established theory, providing empirical evidence when relevant, and, most importantly, clearly explaining the how and why the relationship occurs, showing the reader the full picture and the interconnectedness.
Okay. And what are the pitfalls for this theory section? What should we watch out for?
Well, first, lack of specificity is a common one.
Being too vague.
Yeah. Authors draw on a general theory without explaining the particulars of how it applies to their specific hypothesis. For instance, citing social exchange theory for a general principle, but failing to detail how it applies to a specific operationalization.
Okay, connect the dots clearly.
Right. Second, fragmented theorizing.
Fragmented, like disconnected.
Exactly. It occurs when a different theory supports each hypothesized link, giving the impression of post hoc theorizing rather than an integrated narrative. It can seem as if authors are just casting about for theories that fit data they've already gathered.
Making it fit after the fact.
Yeah. Right. The theories must be woven into a coherent, cohesive story. Finally, stating the obvious is a subtle but common mistake.
Something everyone already knows.
Yeah. If a claim is so common sense or thoroughly supported that it becomes trivial, it doesn't offer a novel contribution. A helpful tip here is to flirt with the null hypothesis.
Flirt with the null. What does that mean?
By reflecting on the plausibility of the opposite argument, if the null hypothesis, the idea that there's no relationship, can't even be framed as plausible, then your alternative hypothesis might indeed be too obvious or uninteresting for an AMJ level contribution, or even for a groundbreaking business idea. If there's no tension, it might not be that interesting.
Interesting check. If the opposite is unthinkable, maybe your idea isn't that surprising.
Could be. Something to consider.
All right, so your theoretical argument is solid, coherent. Now it's all about proving it, right?
Exactly. Time to get empirical.
This brings us to research design. where, as Bono and McNamara said back in August 2011, matching research design to research questions is as much art as science. That seems like a crucial point for any project, not just research, getting the setup right.
You're absolutely right. This is where many manuscripts are unfortunately rejected.
Really, at the design stage.
Oh, yeah. Because the fundamental design of a study can't be altered during the revision process, so crucial decisions made here directly impact the degree of confidence readers can place in your conclusions and your ability to discount alternative explanations.
Can't fix a broken foundation later.
Pretty much. The editors identified three broad issues that are common sources of rejection.
Okay, what are they?
First, a mismatch between the research question and the chosen design. Second, measurement and operational issues, basically. How accurately you're defining and measuring the concepts you claim to be studying. That's about construct validity.
Right, measuring what you think you're measuring.
Exactly. And third, inappropriate or incomplete model specification. It's about ensuring your scientific setup or your project plan can truly answer the questions you're asking.
Okay, let's take the first one. Mismatch between question and design. I've heard about issues with using just a snapshot of data, cross-sectional data. What's the problem there, especially if you're trying to show cause and effect?
Right. The issue isn't that cross-sectional data is inherently flawed. It's that it's often mismatched with research questions that implicitly or explicitly deal with causality or change.
Okay, so if your question is about change.
Then a snapshot doesn't cut it. If your core question is about cause and effect relationships or changes over time, for example, the effects of a new training program on employee performance, or how leadership changes influence company investment patterns, then cross-sectional data simply isn't sufficient.
Done.
Because you can't establish the time order. Did the cause happen before the effect? You need longitudinal data, which is collected over multiple time points, or experimental data where variables are actually manipulated.
Okay, so data over time or an experiment.
Think of it like trying to prove that a new marketing campaign caused an increase in sales. You can't just compare sales during the campaign to a single previous day.
Right, other things could have happened.
Exactly. You need to track sales over time, before, during, and after, to truly understand the impact and rule out other factors. The critical question to ask yourself at the design stage is, can your chosen approach actually answer your underlying question, especially if it implies change or causation?
Good question to ask up front. What about the people you study? Does it matter who you study or how you conduct your study? Or can you just grab any convenient group, like students?
The perennial student sample question. It definitely matters. The critical point is whether your sample and procedures are appropriate for the research question.
Appropriate for the question. Okay.
For example, asking university students to make executive selection decisions might not be appropriate if you're trying to test gender stereotypes on experienced managers. The context is wrong.
Right. They lack the experience.
But that same student sample could be perfectly suitable for studying, say, how unconscious biases affect preferences in a hypothetical scenario.
So it depends on the question you're asking.
Exactly. Devers et al. In 2007 provide a good fit example. They used executive MBA students with direct experience in contingent pay to study equity-based pay evaluation, a group that was genuinely informed on the topic.
Okay, they knew what they were talking about.
Right. Similarly, if your study involves an unfolding scenario where decisions are made over time and in response to feedback, collecting data over time would be far more appropriate than trying to simulate it all in a single lab session.
Makes sense. Match the method to the reality.
The goal is always to clearly justify why your specific sample and procedures are the most appropriate for your unique research question, making a strong case for their suitability. Your audience needs to believe your data came from the right place, collected in the right way.
Okay, now let's talk about measurement, the nuts and bolts of how you actually measure things. What are the key considerations for measuring concepts accurately, that construct validity thing?
Yes, construct validity. It's critical. Before you even operationalize, you need to clearly articulate the definition and boundaries of the new construct, mapping its association with existing ones. What is this thing, and what is it not?
Define your terms carefully.
Very carefully. And it's essential to avoid jingle-jangle fallacies.
Jingle-jangle fallacies. Sounds musical.
Huh. It means assuming scales with the same name measure the same construct, that's the jingle fallacy, or conversely, assuming that different names necessarily mean different constructs, the jangle fallacy.
Ah, okay. Don't assume based on the name.
Right. Think of it like trying to measure team cohesion. Are you actually measuring how well they work together or just how much they like each other? Those could be different things, even if both are sometimes called cohesion.
Good point.
If your core construct isn't well defined, it leads to inconsistency. For example, conflating organizational legitimacy with mere reputation or status. Reviewers and any informed audience need to see clear conceptual meaning and evidence that the construct has been appropriately measured to have confidence in your findings.
Okay. What about adapting existing measures or dealing with common data collection issues, especially if you're doing a survey? People often tweak surveys, right?
They do, but you have to be careful. If you adapt existing measures, you absolutely must provide supporting validity evidence for those changes.
Prove the changes didn't break the measure.
Exactly. It's recommended to include all items in an appendix, or, even better, demonstrate high convergent validity with the original scale in a subsample. Show it still measures the same thing.
Okay.
A big red flag for reviewers is using existing measures to assess completely different constructs without strong justification.
Like using a ruler to measure temperature.
Kind of, if change in format was used for strategic change in prior studies, just using it for organizational search without proving it works for that will raise serious concerns. You must establish the uniqueness of your new construct and its valid operationalization.
Makes sense. Then there's the survey issue. Common method variance.
Yes, common method variance, a pervasive issue, especially with surveys. It's where both your predictor and criterion variables come from the same source at the same time, using the same method, like a single self-report survey.
So asking the same person about their job satisfaction and their performance.
Exactly. Think of it like using the same shaky ruler to measure two different things. If you get both numbers from the same employee survey, any positive connection you see might just be because people tend to answer consistently on that specific survey, not because one thing truly influences the other.
It's an artifact of the measurement.
Precisely. It's like a built-in bias from your measurement tool, not the actual relationship. This is a serious threat, as observed correlations might be inflated due to shared measurement error rather than actual relationships. Podsakoff and colleagues wrote extensively about this back in 2003, outlining remedies authors are expected to address.
Okay. Definitely something to watch out for with surveys. How do you decide what other variables to include in your model, especially controls and mediators? It sounds like you could just add everything.
Yeah, it's tempting, but you shouldn't. Careful attention here provides substantial payback in the review process, though. Control variables should ideally meet three conditions.
3 conditions for controls. Okay.
First, a strong theoretical or empirical correlation with the dependent variable, the outcome you're measuring. Second, a correlation with the independent variable, the predictor you're focused on. And third, a logical reason why they aren't more central to the study.
So, related to both, but not the main event.
Right. Including superfluous controls can actually bias findings, while omitting necessary ones can also skew results. It's a balancing act.
And mediators. Those explain the how, right?
Exactly. Mediators are crucial for testing why variables are related, for building theory. You need to decide at the design stage when and which ones to include. As a field matures, multiple mediators might be necessary to capture the complexity of a phenomenon.
Right. The story gets more complicated over time.
And failing to assess known, conceptually related mediators can make your contribution seem less novel, as reviewers will definitely wonder why you didn't account for established pathways. It's about precision in your argument and acknowledging existing knowledge.
Okay. Wow. It sounds like designing a perfect single study is almost impossible with all these considerations. What's the takeaway here for us, especially if we only get one shot at proving our point in a business context?
That's a great point. Most single study designs do have inherent flaws. The pragmatic approach, as suggested by the editors, isn't necessarily to eliminate all threats to validity in one go, but rather, in research, to conduct a series of studies.
Multiple studies.
Yeah, each individual study might have its own limitations, but together they allow for stronger inferences and more generalizable results than any single study could achieve on its own.
Combining strengths to cover weaknesses.
Exactly. Combining field studies with lab experiments, like Grant and Barry did in 2011 with their work on proactive behavior, or testing findings across multiple industry data sets, like Beck and colleagues did in 2008 for family firms. These are excellent examples.
Okay.
This multi-study approach is actually vastly underutilized in management research, but it can lead to much stronger, more impactful papers.
But what if you don't have the luxury of multiple studies, like for a single business pitch?
Right. You can't run a whole series of experiments for one presentation. But you can still build confidence by doing a few things. Transparently acknowledging your single studies or analysis's limitations.
Honesty about the limits.
Using the strongest possible design given your constraints.
Do the best you can.
And crucially, showing that your findings are robust, maybe by testing them with slightly different methods or measures if possible. Sensitivity analysis.
Showing it holds up.
Yeah. It's about honestly assessing limitations and taking proactive steps to minimize them, perhaps across multiple efforts that build upon each other over time, even if not in one single paper or project.
Okay, so you've designed the study meticulously, collected the data. Now you just report it, right? Seems like the straightforward part.
You might think so. But Zhang and Xia, in their February 2012 editorial, they argue that these sections, methods, and results, far from being mundane, often play a major role in how reviewers evaluate a manuscript.
Really? Just reporting the facts?
Yeah, because they signal the conscientiousness and rigor of the authors. Their evaluation of rejected manuscripts revealed a remarkably consistent set of major concerns for both sections, which they summarize neatly as the 3 C's.
The 3 C's. Okay, what are that?
Completeness, clarity, and credibility.
Completeness, clarity, credibility. Got it.
This means that even in these seemingly technical parts of a paper or any report or presentation, how you present your work is just as important as the work itself.
Okay, let's break down the 3 C's for the methods section first. What does completeness mean there? How do you explain how you got your data completely?
It means providing a complete description of how data was obtained, how your concepts or constructs were operationalized, and what analyses were conducted.
The details.
All the relevant details. For primary data, that means explaining not just what happened, but why decisions were made. Balmer and colleagues in 2007 are cited for detailing how participants were contacted, who reported information for different constructs, and even how they ensured supervisors reported for all their direct reports. Really spelling it out.
Okay, the whole process.
Yeah.
What about archival data?
Same principle. You need to replicate that level of detail, maybe drawing from technical reports, or describe your coding process completely, including any judgment calls you made along the way.
Acknowledging subjectivity.
Right. The ultimate goal is to provide sufficient information that someone could replicate the study and get the same results if they followed your exact procedure and used the same data.
Replication is the standard.
Exactly. It's about full transparency, like providing the exact ingredients and cooking steps for your secret sauce so others can confirm it works.
Okay, completeness. What about the second C, clarity? How do authors often fail to be clear in this section?
Authors often fail to clearly explain what they've actually done. A common problem is using vague language like "we adapted items" without detailing how they were adapted or providing validity evidence for the changes.
Just saying we changed it isn't enough.
Not at all. Ideally, authors should use full validated measures. If modifications are made, they need strong justification and clear explanation. Another clarity issue is justifying variable coding, especially for archival data or when assigning numerical codes based on qualitative responses.
How you turned words or observations into numbers.
Right. Ferrier in 2001 provides an excellent example of clarity in describing structured content analysis and coding decisions for news headlines. It's about removing any ambiguity for the reader, ensuring they understand every single step of your measurement and coding process. If they have questions, your clarity isn't there yet.
Eliminate the guesswork for the reader. Got it. And the third C for methods. Credibility. How do you enhance the credibility of your methods section? Make people believe you did it right.
Good question. First, you must justify why a particular sample was chosen, especially if it's not immediately obvious why the phenomenon is important or relevant in that specific setting.
Why these people or this context?
Exactly. Tenjarala and Ramanujam in 2008 did this well by explaining why hospital nurses were an appropriate sample for studying voice in organizations. Second, always summarize the conceptual definition of a construct before describing its measure.
Remind us what you're measuring first.
Yes, it helps readers see the connection between your theory and your operationalization. Third, explain why a particular operationalization was used, especially when alternatives exist.
Justify your choice of measure.
And ideally, report findings using those alternatives if they're available in your dataset. This prevents the perception of cherry-picking the measure that gives you the results you want.
Shows robustness.
Right. Fourth, justify your model specification and your data analysis approaches. Don't just include control variables without a clear theoretical justification. And if multiple analysis methods exist, explain why your choice was made and maybe even show results are robust to alternative choices. Credibility means addressing all the potential what-ifs and why did you do it that way? Questions from your audience.
Okay, that covers methods. Now let's apply the 3 C's to the results section. Completeness first. It seems obvious to just state the numbers right. What more is there?
It means painting a comprehensive picture of your data, not just the headline findings. Including a table with means, standard deviations, and correlations for all your key variables is crucial.
The correlation table, right. Why is that so important?
It helps readers assess credibility themselves. They can check for things like potential multicollinearity between predictors or look for outliers in the means and standard deviations and give them a feel for the data.
Okay, transparency again.
Exactly. You also need to explicitly state the unit of analysis, sample size, and dependent variable for each statistical model you report, especially if they vary across different analyses.
So be super clear about what each analysis represents.
Right. Arthod Day and colleagues in 2006 did this well in their study on executive and director turnover. They clearly differentiated between models for CEO-CFO turnover versus outside director turnover because the data structures and analysis methods were different. This level of detail allows readers to calibrate their interpretations of your findings accurately and prevents reviewers from raising basic clarification questions. It's about giving the full story of your findings, not just the highlights that support your hypotheses.
Okay, completeness means full reporting. What about clarity in results? It seems obvious to connect results to hypotheses, but what are the common mistakes here?
You'd be surprised. Authors sometimes report a table full of results without explicitly linking them back to the specific hypotheses they were meant to test.
Leaving the reader to connect the dots.
Exactly. Or sometimes they prematurely discuss the implications of the findings in the results section instead of reserving that interpretation for the discussion.
Getting ahead of themselves.
Yeah. A good practice is to summarize each hypothesis before reporting its findings, using a clear format like hypothesis X suggests that we find that coefficient is Y in model Z in table N. Thus, hypothesis X is or isn't supported.
A bit mechanical, but clear.
It might sound mechanical, but it ensures absolute clarity and directly addresses the research questions you set out. Importantly, you must address all your key results, significant or not, supportive or opposite to your predictions.
Don't hide the non-significant findings.
Absolutely not. Don't sweep them under the rug. Unsupported results can actually be great fodder for new critical thinking in the discussion section. They challenge assumptions, they drive new theoretical development.
So no results are still results.
There are valuable results. And maintaining a consistent order of variables across all sections and tables also greatly aids clarity. It's about intellectual honesty, showing all the puzzle pieces, even the ones that don't fit perfectly.
Okay. And the final C for results. Credibility. How do you make your results truly credible and relevant to the audience? It's not just about hitting those statistical significance marks like p.05, right?
That's absolutely right. It's definitely not just about the p-values. First, you must demonstrate why your interpretations of the results are correct, especially for complex findings like interaction effects.
Interactions. When the effect of one thing depends on another.
Exactly. Plotting these effects, as recommended by Aiken and West back in 1991, helps visualize the pattern and confirm its consistency with your hypotheses. Visuals are incredibly powerful for credibility here.
Show, don't just tell.
Precisely. Second, if alternative measurements or methods could have been used, conducting and reporting supplementary analyses and robustness checks prevents that perception of cherry-picking results.
Checking if the result holds up using different approaches.
Right. Sai and Ghoshal in 1998 did this by analyzing their social capital data at both the individual and the dyadic pair levels to address concerns about the appropriate level of analysis. Third, and critically, you need to address the so what question regarding practical importance.
Beyond statistical significance.
Yes. A statistically significant effect isn't always practically important or meaningful in the real world. Bronett and King, in 2008, provided concrete numbers for spillover harm in their study on industry accidents. They showed that a chemical firm could expect to lose about 0.15% of its stock price after an accident at another firm in the industry.
Wow, that's a tangible impact.
Exactly. It demonstrated the real-world practical significance of their findings. It's about translating statistical significance into tangible, meaningful insights for practitioners. What's the real impact on the ground? That builds credibility.
Okay, we've talked a lot about general publishing advice, the 3 C's, quantitative methods, but qualitative research often feels like a different beast altogether.
It definitely has its own unique characteristics.
What makes it unique for top journals like AMJ? And how does that uniqueness translate to, say, telling a compelling story about your business or customers using qualitative insights?
Well, the Bands on Corley editorial from June 2012 specifically addresses this. The most significant difference, they argue, is that most qualitative papers advance theory by building it inductively,
Inductively, meaning,
meaning the theory emerges from the data, rather than being tested deductively from preconceived hypotheses. You go in with a question, you immerse yourself in rich data interviews, observations, documents, and the key insights, the theoretical framework, emerge from analyzing that data.
so discovery-driven.
Exactly. And this fundamental difference in purpose drives many other key distinctions compared to quantitative papers, influencing everything from the paper's structure to its presentation style. For a business, it's like immersing yourself in customer feedback or market trends and letting new product ideas or strategies emerge organically rather than starting with a fixed solution you want to test.
Okay. Does this inductive approach change the structure of a paper, or even how you might present a new idea derived from qualitative work?
It absolutely does. Qualitative papers often have a shorter, multi-purpose front end.
Shorter intro. Why?
Well, unlike quantitative papers that develop detailed hypotheses upfront based on existing literature, qualitative work has to work harder in the introduction to establish the theoretical gap and motivate the research question,
Mm-hmm.
while simultaneously providing just enough of a framework for the rich textual data that follow and setting up a springboard for new emergent theory.
That sounds like a tricky balance.
It is. It's a delicate balance. If the literature review reveals too much specific theory up front, it feels like the theory didn't truly emerge from the data. But if it reveals too little, the project can seem too broad or unfocused.
Right.
Plowman et al. 2007 study on radical change, for example, grabbed attention by describing the changes at Mission Church and framed their research question in a way that exposed the theoretical gap while creating intrigue about what they would find.
Okay. So, a concise but intriguing setup. What about the end?
Conversely, qualitative work reserves its biggest punch for the back end. The discussion section is where the data and the emergent theory are deeply integrated in a complex and dynamic way.
The big reveal.
Exactly. Explicitly conveying connections between the analyzed data, the emergent theory, and the relevant literatures. This is where the profound implications are truly delineated and where the novelty of the inductive insights really shines. It's like a mystery novel, where the full explanation and significance come together at the end.
Interesting analogy. How do qualitative methods differ in how they're presented? It feels like they need to be much more personal than just reporting statistics.
You hit the nail on the head. They often are more personal. Unlike quantitative studies that can sometimes reference well-known data sets and standard statistical tests, qualitative research needs detailed accounts of their data sources and analysis.
Need to show your work in detail.
In rich detail. The signature of qualitative research is its solid grounding in the phenomenon. But each researcher's journey in uncovering that phenomenon is unique and nonlinear. It's not a straight path.
Right, lots of twists and turns.
So communicating that entire journey from initiating the project, collecting data, analyzing it, perhaps going back for more data, right through to submission, is crucial for signaling quality and credibility.
Sharing the research story itself.
Yes. And the researcher often features prominently, sometimes writing in the first person and reflexively acknowledging their own role and perspective to enhance trustworthiness. Dutton and Dukich's 1991 study on homelessness is cited as an exemplar. Their method description is detailed and personal, clearly reflecting their nonlinear discovery process, how their initial objectives actually shifted as the data emerged.
Wow. They didn't just report the findings, they narrated their process of discovery.
Exactly. And for you, the listener, this means if you're trying to explain a complex customer journey or an organizational change based on qualitative insights, sharing how you discovered those insights can be incredibly powerful and persuasive for your audience. It builds trust.
Good point. Now, qualitative data can be messy, as the source says. Lots of text, observations. How do you present that effectively without just overwhelming the reader? And is messy really a strength?
That messiness is absolutely a strength. It reflects the richness and complexity of the real world.
Okay.
But you're right, it presents a challenge. Qualitative data cannot be easily synthesized into simple tables like quantitative data often can. So authors must think creatively about showing their data.
Creative data displays, like what?
It could be matrices, figures showing process flows, rich narratives, carefully selected quotes. Whether it's a chronological account or one based on emergent patterns, the data must be shown, not merely described.
Let the data speak.
Yes. The goal is to transport the reader into the context, to provide a personal experience of the focal phenomenon, and, of course, to support the emergent theory. This means selecting and presenting just enough richness and depth of data, showing key patterns and evidence while still respecting page limits and avoiding data deluge.
Finding the right balance.
It is. Gersich's 1989 study on group development is a great example. She video recorded work groups and used a figure with asterisks marking key transition points in their conversations. It vividly illustrated the patterns that contributed to successful outcomes. It showed discipline in the face of abundant data by discarding irrelevant information and focusing on what truly mattered for the theory.
Wow. Visualizing conversation patterns. Cool. For a presentation, then, maybe think visuals that simplify complexity or carefully chosen, powerful anecdote that transports your audience.
Absolutely. Those are great ways to leverage the richness of qualitative data.
Okay. Now, I love that over half the panelists in the source article use the word story. As someone who loves a good narrative, I'm curious. How does creating a compelling story in qualitative research differ from, say, writing a novel or a compelling case study for a business pitch? What are the unique ingredients?
Storytelling is the very essence of presenting qualitative work effectively. While quantitative articles tend to follow a fairly defined structure intro, lit review, hypotheses, methods, results, discussion qualitative researchers attempt to create narratives.
It's more like weaving a tale.
In a way, there are often two tightly interwoven narratives happening. There's the theory narrative, discussing the current understanding and the new theory that's emerging. And there's the data narrative, describing the data collection, the analysis process, and presenting the actual data, quote, observations.
Theory and data talking to each other.
Exactly. They don't just present findings, they create tension through a provocative question, build plot through the data narrative, and provide interesting, even provocative explanations and conclusions through the theory narrative.
Building intrigue.
Right. Elsbach and Kramer's 2003 study on Hollywood pitches is a beautiful example. They skillfully wove rich data, quotes from screenwriters pitching ideas, observations of executives' reactions directly into their theory narrative about social judgment. They showed how assessors judge creative potential based not just on the pitch itself, target attributes, but also on their relationship with the person pitching.
Wow, bringing the theory to life with the data story.
Exactly. The unique ingredient is that direct, authentic link between raw data from the real world and the emergent theoretical insights. Like a good novel, good qualitative work seduces readers and motivates them to continue reading because of its compelling narrative quality.
Okay, so it sounds like qualitative research is much more about exploration than sticking to a rigid plan. That sounds kind of liberating, but also maybe a bit terrifying.
It can be both. The editors explicitly state quantitative research is about careful preparation and faithful execution of the plan. Qualitative research is about exploring ideas.
Exploration versus execution.
Nicely put. The tools and processes vary widely, and qualitative researchers often don't know exactly where they'll land when they start. The process itself is highly iterative.
Iterative, meaning?
It means concurrent writing and research. Data analysis is closely tied to the writing process. The emergent theory often reveals itself while the back end of the paper, the discussion, is being written, which then often forces changes to the front end, the introduction and literature review.
So the writing helps the thinking.
Absolutely. This defiance of detailed upfront planning even extends to the review process. Reviewers of qualitative papers often become co-creators in a sense.
Co-creators, how?
Because the full scope and implications of an inductive study's theoretical contribution often aren't completely understood, even by the authors sometimes, until constructive feedback is received from knowledgeable reviewers. They help shape the final theoretical contribution.
Wow, it's really a process of discovery.
It is, like a sculptor, continuously reworking the material based on what emerges. This highly iterative process is sustained all the way until the final draft is accepted. It's truly a journey of continuous discovery and refinement, which can indeed feel terrifying, but it often leads to the most surprising and profound insights precisely because it's not locked into a rigid plan.
Okay, we've covered the whole journey. Topic choice, intro, theory, design, methods, results, even the nuances of qualitative work. Now, you've done all the work, written the paper. What's left for the discussion section? It seems like you'd just be summarizing everything at this point.
That's what many people think, but it's a missed opportunity. Galetkinich and Tepper, in their April 2012 editorial, call the discussion section a twofold, somewhat paradoxical entity, as both an ending and a new beginning.
An ending and a beginning. Paradoxical indeed.
Right. Many authors unfortunately treat it as a mere formality, almost an afterthought, which means they forego a number of valuable opportunities to really strengthen their study's message and embed it effectively in the existing literature.
So it's more than just a summary.
Much more. It's not just a perfunctory exercise. It's a critical forum to explore the true significance of your work, to make explicit the value you've added to the field, and also to look forward. Think of it as your final crucial opportunity to really sell the so what of your research.
Okay, let's unpack that ending part first.
Well,
How does the discussion bring closure to a study?
Well, it brings closure primarily by revisiting the study's original theoretical motivation, the puzzle you set up in the introduction, providing an orderly completion to that narrative arc.
Circling back to the beginning.
Exactly. It robustly answers that so what question we keep mentioning, articulating clearly how the study changes, challenges, or otherwise fundamentally refines understanding of extant theory.
Making the contribution crystal clear.
Precisely. Scherer and Lee in 2002 are praised for doing this well. They framed their responses to theoretically grounded questions in a way that really illuminated underappreciated aspects of resource dependence and institutional perspectives, showing how their core processes drive innovation. Finally, the ending part involves synthesizing their study's empirical findings in an aggregate fashion.
Pulling all the results together.
Yes, weaving them into a unified, theoretically grounded narrative. This creates a single, coherent message, even reconciling unexpected or contrary findings, fostering the integrity of your conceptual model. Agarwal et al. In 2004 demonstrated this well with their study of corporate spinouts, showing how different findings all tied into a larger, coherent story about that phenomenon. It's like the final act of a play, bringing all the threads together logically.
Okay, that makes sense for the ending part. How does it also become a new beginning? Where does that come in?
It becomes a new beginning by doing several things that point forward. First, it often delves deeper into why the observed relationships occur, exploring the underlying mechanisms and processes more speculatively than perhaps you could in the theory section.
Going beyond the data a bit.
Maybe offering deeper interpretations or suggesting refinements. This creates a crucial bridge between your specific findings and the larger literature, refining appreciation of the underlying theory. Second, new insights can emerge from juxtaposition relative with earlier results, especially when your findings compete with or depart from prior evidence.
Comparing your results to others.
Right. Exploring these departures can reveal unexpected boundary conditions for existing theories or highlight previously overlooked gaps in the literature, suggesting new avenues for research.
Turning discrepancies into opportunities.
Exactly. Even findings that are consistent with prior research can be used to hone subtle dimensions of understanding. Seibert, Kramer, and Ledin in 2003 showed how controlling for certain predictors actually strengthened their contribution regarding social capital, refining the theory. Finally, authors can inform future theoretical understanding by exploring the path that led to discovery.
Talking about the research journey again?
Even highlighting unsupported hypotheses. These are informative. They can drive new theoretical development because they challenge assumptions or reveal important differences among perspectives that weren't anticipated. The failure to find rigorous support for an idea is itself thought-provoking and genuinely helpful to continued theory development by ruling out possibilities and suggesting where else researchers might look.
So even dead ends can point the way forward.
Absolutely. They prune the theoretical tree, so to speak.
Okay, so a powerful section. What are the most common mistakes authors make in their discussion sections? And how can we avoid those when we're trying to wrap up a project or presentation effectively?
The editors highlight three really prevalent errors. First, simply rehashing results.
Just summarizing again?
Exactly. Where authors merely summarize findings again instead of explaining their deeper theoretical meaning and implications, the discussion needs to move beyond what was found to why it matters and what it means.
Elevate the conversation.
Right. Second, meandering.
Wandering off topic.
Kind of, where the narrative references numerous theoretical implications that seem disconnected from each other, or crucially, disconnected from the paper's original hook and research questions. The discussion needs to cohere around a small number of important issues covered in sufficient depth, staying focused on the specific problems introduced in the opening. It shouldn't become a laundry list of minor tangential points.
Stay focused on the core message.
Precisely. And finally, overreaching.
Claiming too much based on the data.
Exactly. deriving sweeping conclusions that outstrip the data or weaving in completely new theories or constructs that weren't mentioned anywhere earlier in the paper.
Trying to make it sound more important than it is.
Often, yes. This frequently happens when authors realize, maybe late in the process, that their actual implications seem a bit pedestrian, so they try to inflate them artificially.
Uh-oh. How to avoid that?
A great way to avoid this is to actually think about what the implications subsection of the discussion will look like before you even write the introduction and theory sections.
Plan the ending from the beginning.
Sort of, envisioning the desired contribution and implications up front helps ensure the entire project, the question, the theory, the design, aligns with the journal's mission for depth and scope from the very start. It helps ensure you actually have something significant to discuss at the end.
Proactive thinking. Makes sense.
Yeah.
Hashtag it outro. Wow. Okay, we have covered a lot of ground today. From choosing a topic that truly changes the conversation, using those 5 criteria,
Significance, novelty, curiosity, scope, actionability.
to crafting an introduction that really hooks your reader, answering those key questions,
Who cares? What's the gap? What will we learn?
to building bulletproof theoretical arguments, designing your research with precision and validity,
Matching design to question, careful measurement.
presenting your methods and results, using the 3 C's,
Completeness, clarity, credibility. Crucial.
navigating the unique world of qualitative research, and harnessing the power of storytelling,
Embracing the iterative journey.
all leading to a discussion section that's both a powerful ending and a new beginning for the field.
Yeah. Bringing it home and pointing forward.
It's really clear that publishing impactful research, or honestly developing and communicating any significant idea, is a challenging, multifaceted journey, but also one that seems incredibly rewarding when done well.
It really is. And if we connect all this back to the bigger picture, what really stands out, I think, is the deeply iterative nature of this entire process.
Iterative, yeah, that came up a lot.
From rethinking your introduction 10 times, to revising your qualitative methods as new theory emerges from the data, to even having reviewers act as co-creators in shaping the final contribution, it seems less about following a rigid linear plan, and much more about continuously refining, exploring, and allowing your ideas to evolve in dialogue with the data, with feedback, and with the broader scholarly or professional conversation.
Adapting and learning as you go.
Exactly. Which I think raises an important question for all of us. If even seasoned experts, top scholars, embrace this iterative, sometimes ruthless rewriting, constantly questioning process, what does that teach us about the humility, the persistence, and maybe the adaptability required for any deep learning, any creative endeavor, or any significant problem-solving challenge in our own lives, academic or otherwise?
That's a great point. It's not about having all the answers up front, but about the process of finding them, refining them, being open to change.
Precisely. The journey matters as much as the destination.
So whether you're embarking on your own research, grappling with a complex problem at work, or just trying to communicate your ideas more effectively in any context, think about these insights we've discussed today.
Yeah, hopefully they're useful.
Embrace those grand challenges. Chase curiosity. Really obsess over clarity. And remember that sometimes the true discovery, the real insight, happens in the act of explaining and refining your ideas for others.
The act of communication itself sharpens the thinking.
Exactly. So what stands out to you, our listener, from today's deep dive? How will you apply these lessons, maybe about topic choice or introductions or storytelling or that iterative process, to your next big project, your next important conversation, or even just your next interesting question? Lots to think about.
Definitely. Food for thought.